figured if we're going to talk about youth and education, we should bring youth to the conversation. My son received an award not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I know that because I found it in his room. It said Teacher Recognition Award, and he was given a certificate for that. And so as proud parents, my wife and I put this on the refrigerator for a little bit, and then it ended up in a box. And typically, that's kind of what we do, right? We get these achievements, we get these awards. Human beings are incredibly creative. And throughout, from middle school into high school, we're given certificates, we're given awards, and sadly, we take those home and we put them in a box. I can't think of anything less connected than a box. And I think we need to think differently about that. And what we're doing with the accreditation process and the certification process, and in some cases, maybe it's the diploma that we need to think about. So today, I'm going to propose a question to you. If you're going to rethink and change the education system, what would it look like? And that's a big question. Maybe we don't start with the entire education system. Maybe we could start with something smaller. Perhaps it's the accreditation system and its certification process. If we were going to change that, I think we would take it out of the box, right? I think we would make it more connected than it is today. I think definitely we would take it out of the box and put it in the cloud, because if it was in the cloud, it would be discoverable, right? It would be machine readable, and you could find talent that way, an opportunity you could find kids. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about creativity and how it enables us to connect things. That's a great quote by Steve Jobs. And I want to give you a case study through John Lasseter. So John Lasseter had his dream job in 1980. He got to go work for Disney. He's a cartoonist, he's an animator, and that's what he wanted to do. But he had more than just an idea of creating animation. He wanted to create computer animation. So he did some mashup of technology and his talent. And he had this project, an 8-month project. It was called The Brave Little Toaster, because he was going to show the executives at Disney what they could do and what was possible. And after 8 months, he took it to the executive team and said, here you go. After that meeting, he received a phone call literally 5 minutes later, and it said, John, thank you for your work at Disney. Your services are no longer needed. And he was exited out of the building. And so John took his creativity, put it in a box, and left Disney. So he was a little frustrated by that, a little saddened by that, and he wasn't sure what he was going to do. So what he did is he went to an animation conference, and there was a speaker at that conference who worked at LucasArts and Lucasfilm, again, back in the early 80s. And they were doing some unique things with technology. So he met with John, and they started talking about what was possible. And they did this mashup of ideas, and they said, come work for us. So John did. And from that became the birth of Pixar. Steve Jobs loved it because he invested in that. But the irony here is later Disney bought Pixar, so John ended back up where he started, right? And so good for John. But the point is that John was able to connect the dots. He was able to put things together and think differently about something. And he was brave enough to step out there and do that with other bright minds. We need to do the same thing with education. Education cannot remain the way it is today. And it's interesting because there's a lot of concern about the education system today. And I'm going to talk about 3 things briefly. The concerns are the foundation of education, where innovation is happening in education, and third, the cost of education. So, education is a product, the way we see it today, from the industrial age, right? And there's been a lot of great TED Talks on this, and so I'm not going to go into this too much, but you just need to know this, that it's built on a manufacturing process. It's a very linear process, right? It's factory-based, and the point is to get through that process as fast as you can and to put people through that process, right? It's not sustainable, at least it's not sustainable for a lot of people who don't necessarily learn that way. What's happening from an innovation standpoint is the learning management systems. There's a lot of discussion going on about instruction and instruction online. There's massive online open courses. There are flipped classrooms. a lot of the ideas for online learning today actually stem back to the Plato system, which happened in the 60s and the 70s. And a lot of the ideas that were in the Plato system just happened to go onto the internet. But we haven't really raised the bar that much further from these days. But we've made the classes more open and accessible, and a lot more innovation needs to happen this way. The other thing that we've done, though, is we've put the course at the center of the universe, and I argue that the course shouldn't be the center, that the student should be at the center, and that innovation should be happening around students and not necessarily all around the course. The other thing is rising costs. And so when you look at education today, and the cost of a four-year degree for some major universities runs between $100,000 to $150,000. Right? And you look at, that creates student debt. And students today are buying into that. And when you have student debt to the point where it's over the entire US consumer credit card debt, and when debt reaches over $1 trillion for education in the United States, that's a problem, right? It's not sustainable. So you have to think differently about education, at least how you connect education. But we go through this process of learning. We all get in line, we go to high school, and then from high school we think we should go to college. At least 68% of us do. So on average, this coming fall, about 68% of kids from high school will go to college. About 1 million kids will drop out of high school this next year in the United States. I think there's a great story here. From the movie See Anything. So John Cusack. He plays the part of Lloyd Dobler in this movie. And he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life. And he's in a pressure situation. He's in a situation where he's at dinner with his girlfriend, or at least the girl he hopes will be his girlfriend, and with her dad. And her dad asks him a question. Lloyd, what are you going to do with your life? And he responds, you mean for a job, for a career? He goes, yeah, what are you going to do? Because this girlfriend was a valedictorian, so the pressure was on. So he says, well, I don't want to sell anything, buy anything, or process anything for a career. I don't want to sell anything bought or processed, or buy anything sold or processed, or I don't want to process anything bought, sold, or processed, or repair anything bought, sold, or processed. I don't know, sir. I can't figure it out tonight. I'm just going to hang out with your daughter. I like kickboxing, but I question the longevity of that, right? And so, but he's honest. He's honest about it. So, but what we do, again, is we set the stage for kids to say, as soon as you're done with high school, go to college. And I'm not saying that's not wrong. I'm just saying that maybe we don't have to go to college right away, right? 56% is an important number because for those that do go to college, 56% actually graduate, right? So that's a kind of a big dropout rate. And the other reason that 56% is important is because only 56% of that 56% actually get a job that requires a degree. The rest get jobs that don't require a degree or they're unemployed. So those are some staggering stats. Steve Jobs said that we have to trust that the dots will somehow connect. So how do we connect the dots, right? How do we change education? It's easy, it's harder to look forward to connect the dots. It's easier to look backward to connect the dots. But let's rethink this service of a diploma. Let's rethink certification. Let's rethink this entire process. Because if we treat it as a communication device, it won't be a piece of paper. It won't sit in a box. It'll sit in the cloud. It'll be machine readable. It'll be upgradable. It'll be living and breathing. So if I do drop out of high school, I don't have to have this big fail stamp on my forehead. I can later pick it up. And maybe I don't have to go to a four-year college to start to learn. Maybe I can start to take courses, perhaps some are free, but it starts to align me with things that I have passion about, things that I'm good about. And it doesn't have to be this staggering cost. If you think about the diploma anyway, it's 12th century technology, right? It was originally on a sheepskin. And so in the last 100 years, we've made some fantastic improvements with all our technology that we have today. What are those improvements? Well, we moved it from sheepskin to paper, right? And so now it looks nicer on the wall. But it can't be that. It has to be more than that. The entire certification program needs to be upgradable. It needs to be connected. And if we do this and we do it right, an opportunity finds students. Scholarships will find students. Mentors will find students. Classes will find students. Internships, all these different opportunities will happen for students. It'll be based off their passions. And they won't have to necessarily go to a job interview or maybe not get a job interview because there's a checkbox that says must have 4-year degree. And without that checkbox, they're not even honored an interview. That has to change because we don't have to go through a $150,000 lesson to change education. We just have to make it more connected and have it more focused on people's passions. Thank you.